Make him regret losing me, I whispered, not knowing the man standing behind me was Dante Moretti, the Italian mafia boss. He tilted his head, voice sharp as a blade. Regret? I can make the whole world kneel for that one word. I turned around. His eyes were cold as a moonless night, but that smile made me unsure whether to fear or tremble. I had just been betrayed. I only wanted to make one man, Ryan Cooper, regret me, but him, with just one sentence, turned my small revenge into a blood-stained verdict. Only when the headline screamed, "Ex-girlfriend of CEO seduces mafia boss at wedding," did I realize I hadn't whispered to the wrong man. I had whispered to the devil wearing a man's face. I stood there in that glittering ballroom, my cheap dress sticking to my skin from the sweat of holding back tears. Ryan's wedding was a circus of wealth. Chandeliers dripping with crystals, champagne flutes clinking like they were mocking me. I wasn't supposed to be there. Not really. I'd been invited out of pity, or maybe cruelty, by Alara Voss, Ryan's new fiancée. She'd sent the invitation with a handwritten note, "Come see what you lost." So I went. I don't know why. Maybe I thought showing up would prove I wasn't broken. But when Alara took the microphone during the toast and called me the pitiful ex who thought Ryan would marry her for a bit of kindness, the room laughed. Not all of them, but enough. Their eyes cut into me and I felt small, like I was shrinking into the floor. I clutched my purse, my knuckles white, and walked out head high even though my heart was crumbling. As I stood outside, the valet line buzzing with gossip, a woman in a red dress bumped into me, spilling her drink on my shoes. She didn't apologize, just smirked and said, "Oh, you're the charity case from the speech." Her friends snickered, their diamond earrings catching the light. I wiped the wine off my heel with a napkin, my hands steady, and looked her in the eye. "Keep your drink," I said, my voice low but clear. "And your pity." Her smirk faltered just for a second as I turned and walked away, the gravel crunching under my feet. I didn't look back, but I felt their stares, like needles on my skin. That moment wasn't about winning, it was about refusing to let them see me break. Outside, the night air hit me like a slap. I stood by the valet stand, trying to breathe, when I whispered those words to myself, "Make him regret losing me." That's when I heard his voice, Dante's voice, low and dangerous, like he'd been waiting for me to say it. I turned, and there he was, leaning against a black car, cigarette glowing between his fingers. He wasn't tall, but he didn't need to be. His presence filled the space, made the air feel heavy. His suit was sharp, tailored. But his eyes, they were the kind that saw through you, like he already knew your secrets. "Regret?" he said again, stepping closer. "I can make that happen." I didn't know who he was then. Just a stranger with a voice that made my pulse race. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice barely steady. He smirked, tossing the cigarette to the ground. "Someone who knows regret better than most." I should have walked away, but I didn't. I was raw, humiliated, and his words felt like a lifeline. Before I could say anything else, a flash went off. Someone's phone camera. Then another. By the next morning, social media was on fire. "Lena Hayes flirts with mystery man at ex's wedding." The comments were brutal. Desperate. Gold digger. Pathetic. Ryan even texted me, "Lena, you're pathetic." I sat on my couch, staring at my phone, the words blurring through tears. I'd wanted to stand tall, to show I wasn't broken, and instead I'd handed the world another reason to laugh. But that moment with Dante, those few seconds under the streetlights, had planted something in me. A spark. Dangerous and alive. The next day, I went back to my waitressing job, the diner's fluorescent lights buzzing over me as I poured coffee for truckers and regulars. A group of girls from the wedding came in, their designer bags slung over the booth. They recognized me, whispering loud enough for me to hear. "That's her. The one from the video." One of them called me over, her smile sharp. "Can you make it quick? We don't want to catch whatever desperation you've got." The others laughed, but I just nodded, refilling their cups, my hands steady. As I walked away, I heard one say, "She's nobody." I stopped, turned, and set the coffee pot down on their table, hard enough to make it clink. "Enjoy your coffee," I said, my eyes locked on hers. It's on the house. The diner went quiet, and I walked back to the counter, my heart pounding but my head high. Nobody wasn't a name I'd wear anymore. Hey, before I go on, I just want to take a second. If this story is hitting you, maybe you've been through something like this, felt that sting of being laughed at or left behind. Could you do me a favor? Grab your phone, hit that like button, drop a comment below, and subscribe to my channel. It means the world to me, knowing you're out there, listening, feeling this with me. It's just us here, sharing this moment, and I'd love to know you're along for the ride. Okay, let me keep going. A week later, I met him again. I'd tracked him down through a name I overheard at the wedding, Dante Moretti. I found him in a dimly lit bar on the edge of town, the kind of place where the air smells like whiskey and secrets. I walked in, my hands shaking, but I kept my chin up. He was at a corner table, alone, a glass of something dark in front of him. You said you could make him regret it, I said, sliding into the seat across from him. He raised an eyebrow, that same dangerous smile curling his lips. You have no idea who you're dealing with, do you? He said. I didn't, not really, but I was too angry to care. I want Ryan to feel what I felt, I said. I want him to choke on it. Dante leaned back, studying me like I was a puzzle he hadn't decided to solve yet. All right, he said finally, but there's a price. The price was pretending to be his girlfriend at a mafia negotiation. He didn't say mafia outright, not then, but I pieced it together later. He needed someone on his arm, someone who didn't look like they belonged in his world, to throw off his enemies. I thought I was clever, agreeing to it. I thought I was in control, that I'd use him to get my revenge and walk away clean. He gave me a dress, black, simple, but it fit like it was made for me, and a time to meet him. That night, at a banquet hall filled with men in suits and women dripping in diamonds, I played my part. I smiled, held his arm, laughed at his jokes. Then he kissed me, right there, in front of everyone, his hand on my waist, his lips firm and unyielding. The room went silent. No one moved. No one breathed. I pulled back, my face burning, but his eyes held mine, daring me to break. You're mine tonight, he whispered, just for me. I didn't know if he meant it for the act or for real. At the banquet, a woman in a silver gown approached me while Dante was across the room, talking to a group of men. She introduced herself as Claudia, a syndicate wife, her smile all teeth. You're his new pet, she said, swirling her wine glass. He'll tire of you by next week. I set my drink down, my fingers brushing the stem, and met her gaze. Maybe, I said, my voice calm, but I'm not here for his attention. I'm here for mine. She blinked, caught off guard, and I walked away, my heels clicking on the marble floor. Later, I saw her whispering to another woman, her eyes darting to me. I didn't care. I wasn't playing their game. I was playing mine, and I wasn't about to let anyone else write the rules. The next day, the headlines hit harder than before. Jilted ex uses the underworld for revenge. Ryan was livid. He leaked rumors, calling me the mafia's plaything. My phone buzzed with texts from old friends, co-workers, even my sister. Lena, what are you doing? I felt the ground slipping under me again like I was falling back into that moment at the wedding. I went to Dante, furious, demanding he stop whatever game he was playing. He was in his office, a sleek room with floor-to-ceiling windows, looking out over the city like he owned it. Stop, he said, his voice low, almost amused. Now it's not your revenge, Lena. It's mine. I froze. What does that mean? I asked. He didn't answer, just looked at me with those eyes that made me feel like I was drowning. Before I could press him further, his phone rang. He answered, his face darkening as he listened. When he hung up, he grabbed his coat and said, "Stay here." But I followed him, slipping into the back seat of his car before he could stop me. We'd ended up at a docks warehouse, the air thick with salt and oil. Dante's men were there, unloading crates, their movements tense. A rival boss, a man with a scar across his cheek, stepped forward, laughing. "Moretti's bringing his girlfriend to a deal now," he said, his eyes raking over me. I stood taller, my hands clasped in front of me. "I'm not here to watch," I said, my voice cutting through the humid air. "I'm here to learn." The man's laugh died and Dante's hand brushed mine, just for a second, a silent acknowledgement that made my heart skip. It got worse at the next party. Another mafia gathering, this one in a private mansion, all dark wood and cigar smoke. I was there as Dante's girlfriend again, but the men around me didn't see a partner. They saw a toy. One of them, a heavyset guy with a gold chain, grabbed my arm and told me to kneel and pour his wine. "Be a good girl," he sneered. I stood there, my heart pounding, my hand tightening on the bottle. Before I could say anything, Dante was there. He moved so fast I barely saw it, grabbed the guy's wrist, twisted it until it snapped. The man screamed, collapsing. Dante didn't even raise his voice. "From now on," he said, loud enough for the room to hear, "no one touches her, not even me." He looked at me then, and for the first time, I saw something in his eyes. Not just control, not just power, but something softer, something that scared me more than his anger. After the party, I sat in Dante's car, the city lights blurring past. He didn't speak, just drove, his hands tight on the wheel. I noticed a small tattoo on his wrist, a date, faded but clear. I didn't ask, but my eyes lingered and he caught me looking. "It's not a story you want," he said, his voice rough. I nodded, but I couldn't shake the feeling that it mattered. Later, at my apartment, I found a photo slipped under my door, an old picture of Dante with a woman, her face soft, her smile bright. The date on his tattoo matched the one on the back of the photo. I held it, my thumb brushing her face, and felt a pang I couldn't name. Whoever she wasn't just a memory. She was a wound he carried, and now, somehow, I was part of it. I started digging after that. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was a piece in a game I didn't understand. Late at night, in my tiny apartment, I searched his name online, piecing together rumors and half-truths. That's when I found it. A news article from 5 years ago. Dante's fiancée, a woman named Sophia, had died in an explosion. The article hinted at foul play, tied to a company that sounded too familiar. Cooper Enterprises. Ryan's company. My hands shook as I read. Dante hadn't been helping me out of kindness. He'd been using me to get to Ryan, to dig up dirt, to settle a score. I confronted him the next day, storming into his office, my voice shaking with rage. "You used me as bait?" I said. He didn't deny it. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed, and said, "Yes, but I didn't expect the bait to keep me awake at night." My breath caught. He stepped closer, his voice softer now. "You're not just a pawn, Lena. Not anymore." The night after our confrontation, I found a package outside my door. No note, just a small box wrapped in plain brown paper. Inside was a locket, old and tarnished, with a tiny photo of a young girl who looked like me. Same eyes, same stubborn jaw. My hands froze as I recognized my mother's face, a memory from a childhood I'd buried. I hadn't told Dante about her. Not a word, but somehow he knew. When I asked him about it the next day, he just shrugged, his eyes avoiding mine. "You're not the only one who digs," he said, his voice low. I clutched the locket, my fingers tracing its edges, and felt a surge of anger mixed with something else, gratitude maybe, or trust. He'd given me a piece of myself I thought I'd lost, but it also meant he'd been watching me closer than I realized. The confrontation left me reeling, but I didn't have time to process it. That night, one of Dante's men, a quiet guy named Vinny, pulled me aside at a safe house. He handed me a burner phone and said, "You're in too deep, Lena. Call your sister. Tell her to get out of town." His eyes were nervous, darting to the door. I gripped the phone, my stomach twisting. "Why?" I asked. He hesitated, then whispered, "Ilara's not just Ryan's fiancée. She's got eyes everywhere." I called my sister, my voice low, telling her to pack a bag and leave. She didn't ask questions, just said, "I trust you, Lena." When I hung up, Vinny was gone. But his warning stayed with me, a weight I couldn't shake. I realized then that this wasn't just about me or Dante. It was a web, and I was caught in the middle. He told me the rest then, how Ilara, Ryan's fiancée, was secretly allied with a rival syndicate, feeding them information to undermine Dante. I realized I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was the key to something bigger, something dangerous. I could have walked away, gone back to my quiet life, my waitressing job, my small apartment. But I didn't. I stayed. Not because of Dante, but because I was tired of being the girl everyone pitied. I wanted to be the one who decided how this ended. Then, it all fell apart. Alara released a video, fake but convincing, showing me with Ryan, laughing, touching his arm like we were still together. It spread like wildfire. Dante saw it, and when I went to him, his face was stone. "I trusted you," he said, his voice so cold it cut deeper than any insult. "That was my mistake." Before I could explain, his men grabbed me, took me to a mansion far from the city. They locked me in a room with barred windows, no phone, no way out. The servants whispered when they brought me food, the boss once killed for lies. I sat there staring at the walls, my heart racing. One night, I saw Dante on a security feed, burning a photo of us from the banquet. His face was blank, but his hands shook. I pressed my hand to the screen, wishing I could reach him. Tell him it wasn't true. In that locked room, a maid came one morning, her hands trembling as she set down a tray. She wouldn't meet my eyes, but she slipped a note under the plate. "Check the vent." I waited until she left, then pried open the vent cover with a spoon. Inside was a folded map of the mansion, marked with guard routes. My heart raced as I studied it, memorizing every detail. The maid never came back, but her note was a lifeline, a reminder that not everyone in Dante's world was against me. I tucked the map under my shirt, my resolve hardening. I wasn't going to wait for someone to save me. I was getting out. I don't know how long I was there. Days? Maybe a week. But I didn't give up. I watched the servants, learned their routines. One night, I slipped a hairpin into the lock, jimmied it until it clicked. I ran, barefoot, through the woods, my breath loud in my ears. I didn't know where I was going, just that I had to find Dante, had to make him see the truth. That's when I overheard Marco, Dante's right-hand man, on a phone call. He was talking to Alara, feeding her information, laughing about how easy it was to fool the boss. My blood ran cold. Marco had betrayed him. Marco had set me up. As I hid in the shadows of the woods, a car pulled up, its headlights cutting through the dark. It was one of Alara's men, his voice sharp as he spoke into a radio. "She's gone. Find her, or the boss lady will have our heads." I crouched lower, my hands gripping the dirt, my pulse hammering. Then I saw it. A knife, half buried in the leaves, left behind by some careless guard. I grabbed it, the blade cold against my palm, and slipped deeper into the trees. When one of the men got close, his flashlight sweeping the ground, I held my breath and pressed the knife to my side. He passed by, muttering curses, and I waited until his steps faded. That knife wasn't just a weapon, it was proof I wasn't helpless. Not anymore. I didn't have a plan, not really, but I remembered something Dante had told me about an ambush he was expecting, a deal with a rival syndicate. I found the warehouse where it was happening, my heart pounding as I hid in the shadows. Dante was there, surrounded by men with guns, his face calm but his eyes sharp. Then it started. Shots fired. Chaos. Marco was there too, slipping away, a smirk on his face. I moved before I could think, grabbing a gun from a fallen guard. I didn't shoot, just pointed it at Marco and shouted, "Dante! He's the traitor!" Everything stopped. Dante's eyes locked on mine, then on Marco. In that moment, I saw the truth click for him. He didn't hesitate. He grabbed Marco, pinned him to the wall, and said, "You came back, when I deserved your hate." After the ambush, Dante took me to a safe house, a small cabin hidden in the hills. We sat by a fire, the silence heavy between us. He handed me a glass of water, his fingers brushing mine, and for a moment I saw the man behind the mask. Not the mafia boss, but someone who'd lost too much. "Why did you come back?" he asked, his voice low. I set the glass down, my hands steady. "Because I'm not done fighting," I said. "Not for you, not for me." He looked at me, his eyes searching, and for the first time, I felt like he saw me. Not as a pawn, not as a prize, but as someone who could stand beside him. The fire crackled, and I knew we weren't just fighting for revenge anymore. We were fighting for each other. We worked together after that, setting a trap for Alara and Marco. I played my part, pretending to be broken, meeting Alara in a diner to beg for forgiveness. She bought it, her eyes gleaming with triumph. But Dante was watching, recording every word. When we played the tape for the syndicate, Alara's face went white. Marco turned on her, spilling everything to save himself. They tore each other apart, and Dante didn't have to lift a finger. Later, he looked at me, his voice soft. "You didn't just make him regret losing you," he said. "You made me regret almost losing you." I didn't know what to say. My chest felt tight, not with fear, but with something else. Something I wasn't ready to name. But the underworld doesn't let go so easily. Word spread that Dante was soft because of me. The Mafia Council, old men with cold eyes and colder hearts, called him in. They gave him an ultimatum: get rid of me or lose his throne. He didn't tell me, but I found out. I overheard his men whispering, saw the way they looked at me like I was a curse. I confronted him in his office, my voice steady even though my hands were shaking. "You plan to love me in the dark?" I asked. He looked away, his jaw tight. "I'm trying to keep you alive," he said. But I was done hiding. I left that night, determined to end things with Ryan myself, to cut the last tie to my old life. As I walked through the city, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. A photo of my sister, bound and gagged, her eyes wide with fear. The caption read, "Stay away or she pays." My heart stopped, but I didn't freeze. I slipped into a coffee shop, borrowed a stranger's phone, and called Dante. "They have her," I said, my voice low. He didn't ask who, just said, "I'm coming." An hour later, he found me, his face grim. He handed me a gun, his hand lingering on mine. "You don't have to do this," he said. I took the gun, my fingers steady. "Yes, I do," I said. "She's family." He nodded, and in that moment I knew he wasn't just fighting for me. He was fighting for what I cared about too. Ryan found me first. He grabbed me outside my apartment, his face twisted with rage. "You think you can ruin me?" he spat. He had men with him, rough guys who worked for a rival syndicate. They dragged me to a warehouse, tied my hands, told me I was leverage. Ryan smirked, like he'd won. "Dante will trade anything for you," he said. I didn't say a word, just stared at him, my heart steady. I wasn't the girl he'd left anymore. Dante came for me. He walked into the council's meeting, his men behind him, his face like stone. "If loving her is a crime," he said, his voice carrying across the room, "I'll pay with blood." I wasn't there, but I heard about it later, how he took down the dissenters one by one, not with guns, but with words, with proof of their own betrayals. Then he came for me. He stormed the warehouse, his men cutting through Ryan's like a knife through paper. When he saw me, tied up, he didn't hesitate. He dropped his gun, walked straight to me, and cut the ropes. "From now on," he said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "whoever touches her, touches me." They called me La Signora after that, Mafia Queen. I didn't feel like a queen, but I felt seen. For the first time, I felt like I belonged. In the warehouse, after Dante freed me, I saw my sister in the corner, her hands still tied. I ran to her, my hands shaking as I untied the ropes. She grabbed me, sobbing, and I held her tight, whispering, "You're safe now." But Ryan wasn't done. He lunged at Dante, a knife glinting in his hand. I didn't think, just pushed Dante aside and kicked Ryan's wrist, the knife clattering to the floor. Dante grabbed him, his face a mask of fury, but I put my hand on his arm. "Don't," I said. "He's not worth it." Ryan's eyes met mine, and for the first time I saw fear in them, not of Dante, but of me, the woman he thought he'd broken. Before we left the warehouse, one of Ryan's men, beaten and bleeding, spat at my feet as I walked past. "You're nothing but a pretty face in over your head," he hissed, his voice thick with pain. I stopped, my sister still clinging to my arm, and crouched down to his level. I picked up the knife I'd kicked away, holding it up so it caught the dim light. "You're right," I said, my voice steady. "I'm in over my head, but I'm still here." I dropped the knife, letting it clank against the concrete, and stood, pulling my sister with me. The man's eyes followed me, wide with something like respect or maybe fear. I didn't care which. I was done proving myself to men like him. Later, in a quiet moment, I looked at him, his face bruised from the fight, and said, "You didn't have to burn the world for me. Just stay in it." He smiled, a real smile, not the dangerous one I'd seen before. "I'm not going anywhere," he said. But peace doesn't last in his world. Ilara wasn't done. She came for me one last time, her face twisted with hate. She had me kidnapped again, tied up in some abandoned building, a gun to my head. "Mafia love always ends in blood," she sneered. She gave Dante a choice, my life or my sister's. I didn't even know she had my sister until that moment. My heart stopped, but I kept my eyes on Dante. He dropped his weapon, stepped toward me, his voice steady. "If I lose her," he said, "I've already lost everything." The gunshot came before I could scream. Blood sprayed, and I didn't know who was hit. Everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was in a hospital, my hands still shaking. Ilara was dead, shot by one of Dante's men in the chaos. Ryan was arrested, his empire crumbling under the weight of his own lies. Dante was in a coma. I sat by his bed for days, my voice hoarse from talking to him, telling him everything. How I'd only wanted to make Ryan regret me. How I never meant to fall for him. How I couldn't lose him now. "I only wanted to make him regret losing me," I whispered, my hand on his. "Not lose you instead." One night, his hand tightened around mine. I looked up, and his eyes were open. Those same cold eyes that had softened for me. "You win, Lena Hayes," he murmured. "You made the devil fall in love." We left that world behind, or as much of it as we could. The stories still circulate. Tales of La Signora and the devil, a legend that keeps enemies awake at night. But for me, it's not about the stories. It's about the man who saw me when I felt invisible, who fought for me when I had nothing left. You've been through it, haven't you? That moment when the world tries to make you small, when it laughs and tells you you're nothing, but you're not nothing. You never were. You're the strength that carries you through, the quiet fire that no one sees until it's too late. Hold on to that. Let it carry you forward, just like it carried me. Where are you watching from? Leave a comment below, and hit follow to walk with me through heartbreak, betrayal, and, finally, healing.